Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Analyst podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on the latest insights into successful digital transformation. This Composable Cloud Strategies interview explores how changes in business organization and culture demand a new approach to leadership over such functions as hybrid and multi-cloud procurement and optimization. We'll now hear from an IT industry analyst about the forces reshaping the consumption of hybrid cloud services and why the model around procurement must be accompanied by an updated organizational approach, perhaps even a new office or category of officer in the business category. Here to help us explore who or what should be in charge of spurring effective change in how companies acquire, use, and refine their new breeds of IT is John Abbott. He's with us, and he's Vice President of Infrastructure and co-founder of the 451 Group. Welcome, John.
Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me.
We're delighted to have you with us. So what do you think has changed about the way that IT is being consumed in companies? Is there some sort of a gap or gulf between what used to be the way that IT was acquired and the way it's somehow, maybe through happenstance, is being acquired now?
Well, yeah, I think there is. I think it's because of the technology, the rate of technology change. It's just the whole cloud model has upended traditional IT models in a way that we probably didn't foresee even just 10 years ago, really. So, CapEx to OpEx, operational agility, complexity and costs have all been big factors on that. But now, not just cloud, it's multi-cloud as well. People are starting to say we can't rely on one cloud if we're responsible citizens and want to keep our IT up and running. And there may be other reasons for going to multi-cloud as well, like costs and just suitability for a particular application. So that's added further complexity to the cloud model. And then on-prem continues to remain a critical function. You can't just get rid of your existing infrastructure investments that you've made over many years. So all of that upended everything. The cloud model is basically simple, but it's getting more complex as we speak.
And apparently, but not surprisingly, costs have run away from some organizations that haven't been able to be on top of this mixture of different ways in which to acquire IT, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. So is this also an economic imperative? This isn't just a nice to have. It seems to me that if you don't control this, that your costs will start to control you.
Yeah, and I think you need to look at cloud models of consumption because that really is the way of the future, and it can significantly reduce costs, but only if you control it. And instance sizes, time slices, time increments and things like that all have a huge effect on the cost of cloud services. And, also if you've got multiple people in an organization ordering from their credit cards, particular services, then that gets completely out of control as well. So this has to be you have to control your spending on cloud. With service complexity, I think Amazon has it has hundreds of price points and things that are really hard to keep a track of.
So when we're thinking about who or what has the chops to know enough about the technology, understand the economic implications, be in a position to forecast costs and then budget appropriately, work with the powers that be in the enterprise that are in charge of financial functions, that's not your typical IT director or administrator.
No, I think it's these new generation of more generalist IT admins, people who grew up more with virtualization. So they don't really look at the specifics of a storage platform or compute platform or a networking service. They're looking at it on a much higher level. And those virtualization admins are really the ones I see as probably being the key to all this. But they need tools that help them do this. They need effectively a single pane of glass, or at least a single control point for these multiple services, both on-prem and in the cloud. And also, as the data centers become more distributed, going towards the edge, that adds even further complexity. So they need tools to do that. But they don't need to know the specifics of every platform.
So I've been interested and intrigued by what Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is doing with such products as OneSphere. To your point, getting more tools, more visibility, more automation, and composability around infrastructure and cloud and multi-cloud. But then I wonder, who actually will then use that tool? Who's the consumer, either as an individual or a group in a large enterprise? Or is this person or group yet to be determined, yet to be, pulled out of the ether?
I think they're evolving. There are skills shortages, obviously, for specialist equipment, and people can't replace some of those old admin types. So they are building up a new level of expertise that is more generalist. So I think it is those newer people coming up who are used to the mobile world, who are used to consumer products a bit more, that we'll see. We're going towards everything as a service and cloud consumption models, and people have greater expectations on what they can get out of a system as well. And also, you want the right resources to be applied to your application. The best, most cost-effective resources. It might be in the cloud. It might be a particular cloud service from AWS or from Microsoft or from Google, or it might be a specific in-house platform that you have. No one really has the knowledge, is likely to have that specific knowledge in the future. It needs to be automated. So we're looking at the developers and the systems architects really to pull that together with the help of new automation tools and new management consoles, control planes like OneSphere and OneView, to pull that together so that the admin people don't need to worry so much about that. A lot of it's automated.
And I do like the fact that these tools, including those from HPE, have a role and policy-based approach so that different people can use those tools and, depending upon their role, be given different views and have different access privileges and so forth. So that's very ecumenical, and I think that's a very strong attribute. Yeah. However, the skills and ability to be sort of both a technical person vertically, but a business savvy horizontally remains a challenge. So, John, what we've seen in the past when there's a gap or a vacuum in a business environment is something steps in to fill that. So do you think that we're perhaps getting to a point where we'll start to look for an outsourced approach to this cloud operations IT procurement function? And would that be a systems integrator? Would that be a vendor that's in a neutral enough position to assert itself across the board? What do you think comes next when it comes to those companies that can't quite pull this off themselves?
I think, the role of partners is very important, and I think a lot of the vertically oriented systems integrators and value-added resellers, as we used to call them, with specific application expertise are probably the people in the best position. Because I see in the end, a lot of this will be application-led. We've seen here at Discover, HP acquiring Blue Data, which really allows you to configure in your infrastructure a particular pool for things like big data and analytics applications. And that's sort of application-led. So I think it's those experts in data analysis, and we're seeing in AI, the data scientists coming up. They're not computer experts, they're data scientist experts. So those are the people I think that will drive some of this, and they need partners with expertise in their vertical sector to really sort of help them pull it together, I think.
And of course, in the past, when there's been a vacuum, not only have we seen organizations step in, like a systems integration or a professional services, but we've also seen technology try to rise to the occasion and solve complexity. And so you mentioned intelligence. Where do you think this concept of AI ops, or using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help better identify inefficiencies, learn from past mistakes, and then maybe even start making predictions or recommendations as to how you run your IT. How will that factor into this problem set?
Well, I think there's a huge potential there, and I don't think we've actually seen that really play out yet. But those IT tools are in a great position to gather a huge amount of data from sensors and from usage data, logs and everything like that, and pull that together and then see what the patterns are, and then recommend and optimize for that in the future. I have seen some startups doing systems tuning, for instance. Experts who optimize the performance of a server, for instance, usually have a particular area of expertise, and they can't really go beyond that because it's huge in itself. There are about like 100 knobs on a server that you can tweak to get the speed of it up. I think you can only do that as in an automated fashion now, and we've seen some startups starting to use AI modeling, for instance, to actually pull those things together. So that will certainly be very important, I think, in the future.
It seems to be a case of the cobbler's children have no shoes. The IT department, the IT marketplace, doesn't seem to be on the forefront of using big data to solve their problems.
I know. It's really surprising because they are the people best able to do that. But we are seeing some AI coming together. I mean, again, at HP, Discover here, InfoSight is a tool that's starting to do that, which came from the Nimble acquisition and started as a storage-specific product, but now is broadening out, and it seems like they're going to be using it for quite a lot in the future.
So perhaps we've been looking for the new officer or office of leadership, but maybe it's going to be a machine running the machines.
I think a lot of automation will be happening in the future, but that takes trust as well. And AI is still, I know we've seen AI waves over the years, of course, but the new wave of AI, still there's a trust issue there. So it does take a bit of faith for users to hand over control. But I think, as we talked about, multi-cloud, the edge, and things like microservices and containers where you split up applications into smaller parts, all of that adds to the complexity and requires a level of automation that we haven't really quite got to yet, but are going towards.
Well, we've gotten pretty far out in front of ourselves, but what recommendations can we conjure for enterprises today to start them on the right path, thinking about the economics of IT consumption, perhaps getting more of a level playing field or a common denominator in terms of how one acquires, more of an operating basis across the board, using different finance models. We've heard some from HPE of GreenLake and flex capacity, for example. What steps would you recommend that organizations take to at least get them on the path towards finding this new synthesized ability to both procure, run, and optimize their entire IT?
Sure. Well, I actually recently wrote a paper for HP on 8 essentials of edge to cloud and hybrid management and things. And the first thing we said was proactive cloud strategy. Think out your cloud strategy, where to put your workloads, how to distribute it around different clouds if that's what you think is necessary. Then modernize and automate your existing technology. Try and get some automation tools to some of that traditional stuff. Simplify it with hyper-converged or composable infrastructure so that you have more flexibility about how you use your resources. Make it more like a cloud, but this is the internal stuff. Take out some of that complexity. It's got to be quick to implement. You can't spend 6 months doing this or something like that. And, so some of these lightweight tools that we're seeing, like HP One View and One Sphere, for instance, probably a better bet than some of the traditional huge management frameworks that we used to struggle with. And GreenLake, which is a packaged process. So that's the sort of thing. Make sure it's future-proof. You've got to be able to use the sort of OS and virtualization advances that we're used to now, as well as cloud, open APIs, all that sort of thing, accelerators and things that are coming into the systems infrastructure. Then, everything is a service, so use cloud consumption models. You want analytics, as we said earlier, to start helping you understand what's going on and how you can distribute workloads from the cloud to the edge or on-prem, because it's a hybrid world, and that's what we really need. And then make sure you can control your spending and utilization of those services, because otherwise they'll get out of control and you won't save any money at all. And then, be ready, I think, to extend beyond the data center to the edge as things get more distributed. A lot of the computing will happen close to the edge, as we call it, where things actually happen, and not
micro data centers at the edge.
Yeah. So you have to That's got to be something you start working at now. And that's, if you've got software-defined infrastructure, that's going to be easier than if you're still stuck, wedded to your particular systems, as the old traditional model was.
Well, we're almost out of time. We've talked about what companies should do. What about what they shouldn't do? Do you just turn off the spigot and say no more cloud services? It seems to me that would stifle innovation, that developers would particularly be angry or put off by that. Is there a way of finding a balance between creative innovation that uses cloud services, but within the confines of a economic and governance model that provides both oversight, cost controls, and even, all importantly, security and risk controls?
Well, I think the best way is to use some of these tools as bridging tools. So with hybrid management tools, you can keep some of your existing, especially your mission critical applications running and making sure that they aren't disrupted at all, and then gradually move over the bits that make sense to newer models of cloud and distributed edge and all the rest of it. So if you don't do it in one big bang, you don't lift and shift from one to another, or react, as some people have, to go back from cloud once it's not really worked out. So it's keeping the both worlds going in a controlled way. And then, as I said, making sure you measure what you're doing and you know what the consequences are so it doesn't get out of control.
Very good. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how changes in business organization and culture have demanded a new approach to oversight and management of all or total IT assets and resources and services. And we've learned about how consumption of hybrid and multi-cloud services is a starting point for regaining control over a highly heterogeneous IT landscape these days. So please join me in thanking our guests. We've been here with John Abbott, Vice President of Infrastructure and co-founder of the 451 Group. Thanks so much, John.
Thank you very much indeed.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Analyst Hybrid IT Management Strategies interview. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this on to your IT community and do come back next time.